Hello, all. Thank you for joining us again on the Almost Brothers podcast. Hey, will you do us a favor? If this podcast has meant something to you and encouraged you, will you consider becoming a monthly supporter? You could do $3, $5, $8, or $10 a month. What this does is this helps financially support the podcast so that we can continue to put out content and help better serve you. So if you would, down in the show notes, you can click the link, support, and become a monthly member. We love you. New episode coming your way.
So they finally have a new NCAA football game coming out.
Oh, do they really? I don't care.
Oh,
Dang. You had me fooled for a second. I was like,
dude, so you see what I have to deal with?
Yeah.
Well, now you know how I feel when you're like, oh, Michael, Debbie's got a new cupcake coming out. It's got sprinkles.
It's little Debbie, sir.
Oh, my bad. What, did I say Debbie? Like, who's Debbie?
that's why I was slightly confused. And I was like, maybe that's just someone they know who bakes.
Deborah. Like, what is going on
Debbie
right
owns the bakery.
Gosh dang.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Almost Brothers podcast.
That was only 3 what's ups.
Only 3 of them, yeah. On today's episode, we are talking about not Debbie or Little Debbie. Is that younger Debbie?
Shout out to them.
Not sponsored. We are talking about past and how much they influence today and how people use that as a crutch.
Amen.
Oh, my goodness. In a society full of victims, man, I see so many people lean on this. Well, I was raised this, or my family struggled with this, so that's how I am, and this is just the way I am, and this is just, you got to accept me for who I am because this is how I was raised.
That sounded pretty personal. I don't know.
And how much of that is your upbringing, and how much of that is now your responsibility as an adult to overcome?
It's exactly the direction I was going to go with that. Is at some point you have to accept that you don't have to be the victim. You don't have to be shaped by who raised you, who affected you, who whatever to you.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to define you.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be who you are.
Just because your family struggles with alcoholism doesn't mean you have to be an alcoholic. It doesn't.
Right.
Like, does that, do you lean towards that because of that? Absolutely.
Right.
Are you at a disadvantage, air quote, because of that? Absolutely. Yes. Right. You had a rough start. Guess what? We all have in some way, shape, or form. None of it, very few of us have just had jump start from the start.
Well, and
you have to overcome that stuff.
When we talk about this, I think about Jamie, and she's put her own stuff out there, so I'm not telling tales out of school.
Yeah.
But, her upbringing, she broke that curse.
Yes.
I mean, she didn't have a mother that cared about her. She didn't have that family support system, and, drugs were rampant in her family. She is an amazing mother and an amazing wife and an amazing woman of God, and she has broken that generational curse.
Yeah, and she's such an inspiration even to me and being able to do that, because it's like, my goodness, like you didn't learn this stuff. Like you had to teach yourself how to be a great wife, how to be a great mother, how to be a great woman of God, how to be a good friend, how to do all these things. You weren't taught that. You had to learn those things. And I know that could be very hyperbolic, and it could be very, well, if she could do it, anybody could. But it's so true.
Yes.
If she can overcome the things that she had to overcome, you can do it.
Yeah.
Like, stop leaning on that as a crutch. Well, my parents, blah, blah, blah. That sucks. Yeah. It does. But you can overcome that.
Yeah. We were at another church, and this woman was talking about how she grew up in an abusive household, and she was talking about how her daughter not just got married. They've been married for a handful of months now, but she hasn't changed her last name. And her daughter came up to her, was like, I think it's time I need to change. And she was like, well, yeah, I kind of expect you to. I don't know why you haven't done that yet. And and her daughter was like, well, it's an important name to me. You know, this family is important. And she was kind of like not understanding. And the daughter was like, well, how could you understand? You didn't grow up in a family like ours, so loving.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I was like, wow, that's so astounding to think, like breaking a generational curse like that, to where like your daughter, your son's like, well, you have no idea because you created this.
Yeah.
That was not what you grew up with.
That was polar opposite. Yeah. And that's what Jamie's been so good at, is creating a home that is night and day different. Like my kids have no idea what that type of lifestyle even looks like.
Right.
No clue. You know, Aaliyah does, because she was little while we were still kind of in contact with Jamie's parents like that. But like Zeke and they have no idea what a life like that looks like, because they've never had to live it, because she's such a good example of completely changing it. Like, this is what we're not going to do.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to create.
Yeah, quite literally, because it's almost like the story of the two sons that had the alcoholic father.
Yeah.
One fell deep into alcohol. I can't talk.
Oh,
alcoholism, and the other one strayed so far away from alcohol, and had such a great life and all that. So it's like, yeah, in a sense, kind of like you're saying, we're grown adults. We can choose to live the complete opposite of what that is.
And I seen a video. It was one of those videos where like it was split screen, and you had the judge on one side, and you had like the inmate that comes to the window, and they talk to him. And the judge was this lady, and she's like, "Sir, did you grow up in this town?" And he's like, "Yes, ma'am." And he's like, "Is your name Jonathan?" And he's like, "Yes, ma'am." And she's like, "We went to school together."
Oh yeah, I think
she was like, "I always wondered where that amazing, nice kid, whatever happened to him."
Yeah,
and she's like, "Hey man, I hope things go great for you. I hope you get your life. It's so good to see you. Like, you were just the most amazing kid when we were growing up." And it just shows you two people from the same town went to the same school, which just took two different paths. And yes, of course, their family histories are probably different. Like the guy that's in jail, he probably had it rough, coming up, and she probably didn't. But you have to be able to overcome those things and say, you know what, I was handed a bad hand growing up, but now I'm going to make my own hand. Right. You know, like
shuffle the deck.
Yeah, like you may not have the same opportunities as Barbara down the street that had the rich parents, that had all the connections. She went to the best schools, and you didn't. Okay. Are you going to just use that the rest of your life? You're 45 years old. You're still blaming when you were 8 years old?
Yeah.
Grow up.
Instead of using that as an excuse, use it as an example.
Yes. Yeah. Use that as a testimony.
Yeah.
Hey, you know where I came from?
Right.
Now I'm here.
And so many people are trying to, especially in like schools, they're trying to give out everyone's got the no matter where they come from or their struggles, everyone gets the same trophy.
Yeah.
And I feel that's setting the next generation, the generation after that, up for failure.
Yeah, because you're telling them, hey, you had a bad run. You have no chance. So we're going to have to give you the chance. I hate it. Drives me crazy. And they do this at schools. They put that stupid picture up of a baseball field getting played and a fence. And it says fair doesn't mean equal. And it's got step stools. And one of them's tall because the kid's short, so they could see over, and one of them's short, so they all are at the same level. It's like, what are we teaching kids? Right. You're never going to make it, so you're going to have to find somebody to give it to you.
Yeah.
Instead of telling them, life is not fair.
Right.
You're going to have to overcome that. Like, it drives me, fair doesn't mean equal. Like, well, no, none of us are equal. Right. We all have something that we've got to struggle with and overcome to grow up. You know, It's like, come on, like let's buck up and pull up, put on our big boy and big girl pants, and you can do it.
I was just talking today about my children. Now, my grown children came from the same house, for the most part, but my daughters do not understand a work ethic.
Yeah,
like my boys, they'll work their butts off for whatever they want, whatever they need. But my girls, They just think that life should be handed to them, and I do not understand where they get that mentality. They didn't get it from me.
Well, and that's a good example of that. You were all handed literally the exact same opportunities.
Right.
You came from the same house. You all went to the same schools. You all grew up in the same exact place.
Yep.
What are you going to do with it?
Right.
It's now the ball's in your court. What are you going to do?
Right.
And you see certain ones that are now going, hey, you know what? We didn't have everything grown up. We didn't have all the money, but I'm going to make my own path.
Right.
And you see ones that go, well, I don't know. It's whatever. It's just life.
That's my lot in life.
Right.
Well,
so it's like, what do we do?
Well, in this conversation, those things also stem from comparison.
Yeah.
We were talking about everyone has their own struggles. That woman, I won't use that as an example. You could have someone that's super successful, like 6-figure salary. Maybe they didn't really maybe they had business focused parents that really didn't show them any love, and all they did was learn how to work and invest and do all that. But maybe you've got someone that's making $20,000 a year. Obviously, especially in this economy, it's not a lot at all. But they've got a family and they learned what love is.
Yeah.
Right.
One looks successful.
Yeah.
But they could be. I mean, look at all the celebrities that have committed suicide.
Yeah.
They have everything. Right. But there was something missing.
They have everything.
They thought that and there's something missing.
Yep. Yeah, and it's and there is, and we do need to understand, because a lot of people that have just had it made their entire life, they look at other people, well, you can do it if I could do it. It's like, we do need to recognize that you had a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Like that is a thing. Like it really is. It is a thing. You grew up with a mom and dad in the house. There are certain things that you can look at that directly correlate with success in life. Mm-hmm. Generational wealth. You could lead it back to if your parents own their house. Like you have a huge percentage of people that if they have their house bought, you're gonna make it, because that's just one of the leading things. If you had both parents in the household, if you had a mom and dad that didn't get divorced and they were there, if you went to a decent school, so there are things that give you a leg up, but that doesn't mean if you didn't have those things, you are destined for failure. Yeah. That is nonsense. Right. And now we have leaned into that like never before in human history, that, well, you just had it rough, and you know what? The world owes you something because you had it bad growing up. No, that's nonsense. Get up. You can do it. God has a plan for your life.
Every individual has the opportunity to change their lives.
Yes.
And even if you don't get to a 6-figure salary, work and get yourself to somewhere where you're comfortable.
Yes. Like find out what is important and chase that. Like do the work. Like, of course, there are just bad lots in life. Like you could be busting your tail and something tragic happened that sets you back and erases all that. Absolutely.
Could be Job.
But just keep at it. Don't give up. Don't use that. Well, and what happens most of the time, those people, they don't use that, their past as a crutch in that. They're like, hey, something bad happened that derailed what I was doing. And that's absolutely true. But they don't use that past. Well, I grew up and this happened to me, so that's why I have bad relationships now. It's like, that was 40 years ago. You can't use that as an excuse for why now you have bad. Like it's time to grow up. Like, okay. And that's what I love about Jesus. Born in a manger, didn't have room for him anywhere. Born low.
He started from zero.
Came in low. Why? Because he was showing us, hey, I'm going to come in the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
Okay? And show you that God will use the low, all through the Bible, the lowest of the low. The people that didn't have the names, the people, David wasn't even invited when they were having the party trying to figure out who the next king is, and they got all the brothers lined up and hair combed and ready to go. Yep. David wasn't even invited. Yep. He was the one that God chose, the lowest of the low. So that's what God wants to use. God will use that past and turn it into something amazing.
Well, God uses the broken all through the Bible.
Yes.
I mean, it's very well talked about that multiple people throughout the Bible were just broken quote unquote worthless people
Yeah.
that God turned into something amazing.
Oh, and it drives me. That's just how I am. This is how I was raised.
Yeah.
It drives me insane.
Yes.
It really does.
Yeah. Because at some point, again, like you said, we're adults. We have to take responsibility.
Yes.
Like, I'll use my dating history as an example.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, to me, they were all just crazy exes. But then I got to a point where I was like, well, there was something in common with all of them. That was me.
That was you. You're
That
the
was
common
me.
denominator.
Yeah. And that it.
And we know Liv. Maybe you just like crazy chicks. Wait a minute.
Well, in that sense, it took that to have a sense of realization of, okay, yeah, they weren't great. Neither was I, and I've got to fix something.
Yeah. And that's when you really see people start to grow. When they go, yeah, there's things I need to work on. There's things I've been handed a bad hand. I've got a bad lot in life. I don't have the best last name. I didn't have money. I didn't have a bank account when I graduated high school.
Right.
You know, with mommy and daddy's money sitting in it. Okay, but there's something that I can do to change, grow, and learn.
Right.
I need to do that. Personal responsibility of going, okay, cool. I learned this, now I'm going to grow. I learned this, now I'm going to grow. That's what I tell people, me and Jamie. Should we have gotten married, lived with mom and dad and saved money and done all that? Yeah, absolutely. But instead, we clawed and scratched and fought and learned and fell and learned and fell to build what we have now. We didn't have mommy and daddy's money. We didn't get handed a house when we were graduated. We didn't get handed, $10,000 when we got married.
Mm-hmm.
We had to start from nothing. She used to walk to work.
Right.
Like we just had to, because we said, you know what? We're not going to live like that. We're going to be able to take care of ourselves. And we just fought through it.
Yeah. Dr. Ed Newton, pastor of Community Church, I think it's called Community Church down in Texas. One thing I've heard him say before was, from your greatest battles will come your greatest blessings.
Yeah.
Cliche, think of it like you're shooting an arrow. You've got to have a drawback.
Mm-hmm.
But you can use that drawback to spring you forward.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
Right?
You said right.
And that's about it. But I mean,
Yeah.
really. And in that drawback, that's where you have to decide, am I going to be the victim or am I going to use this
Yeah.
for the better? And that is a choice that everyone has. I won't use hate because it's a strong word.
Hate is a strong word.
Okay.
But I really, really, really don't like you.
Yeah. Well, I don't like when people say, "Oh, I didn't have a choice."
Yeah.
You had a
Yeah.
choice. One was probably easier to make than the other,
Yeah.
or one was more difficult to make than the other, but you've got a choice.
I always like, we went to a church for a while, and one of the guys that was going there, he's a very successful man, has his own business, just very wealthy.
Ball in.
And if you want to put it that way, I'm not going to, but then one day we were at a men's meeting and he started talking about how he overcame a heroin addiction and how he was homeless and
Yeah.
it's just like those people that don't bring up what they had to overcome
Yeah.
as part of their identity.
Yeah.
Like those are people that you need to learn from.
Yeah.
That
They're
the ones
inspiring,
that, yeah,
man.
the ones that don't use that as not as a crutch or anything, but just, hey, look at me, look at what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just
It's not a crutch,
it.
but it's also not a trophy.
right there, you go. That's
Yeah.
what I was trying to say. Good job, Tyler.
Hey, thank you.
2 points.
Hey, look at that.
Well, and-
on the board.
And I think as parents, we need to realize this, because all of us, most parents, if you're a good parent, you want your kids to do better than what you did. So each generation should be doing better. So you want to start that bar as high as you can for them, so that they build on that. If you're starting low and you they had a bad upbringing and you didn't really teach them anything. You kind of throw them into life. They're starting and they're having to build from that starting point. Like I think a lot of parents that do that, we fall into this bad habit of expecting out of these kids to do something that we didn't set them up to do.
Right.
It's your fault as a parent. You didn't set them up to succeed.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, let's try to give them a good running start and match your expectations to what you've given them, to what you've set them up for. I think a lot of parents fall into that where I'm not going to do anything to help you as you graduate. And then when you graduate, why don't you have your life together? Well, Dad, you didn't really help me too much. Like,
Right.
oh, your car broke down. Would you forget to put oil in it? You never taught me I need to put oil in it.
Well, it's
Where am I supposed to learn that from?
it's the same thing with a marriage. When you get to that point to where you're like, why won't you change any of these things that are bothering me? You haven't told me
Yes.
any of these things I need
Yes.
to change. So how am I supposed to know?
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't just magically come
Right.
up with these things.
But you're supposed to read their mind, Richard.
No,
Duh.
I don't play games. I'm too old.
Right. And
Quit playing games with my heart.
with my heart.
This boy don't know nothing about no boy band.
Boy, listen, I'm all about NSYNC.
Oh,
I'm all about
I was
Backstreet
singing
Boys.
NSYNC this morning. I was watching a video. They were on Clueless, the TV show back in the day. It was like, I don't know what year it was, but I think it was like 2007 or
I
something
didn't
like
know
that.
there was a Clueless TV show.
There was, yeah. And
Yeah,
they came on.
you
and
were
and
clueless. Star of the show.
And they were singing. I was singing along with them.
Talking to
Because
you.
I was the sixth member of NSYNC. In case you didn't know that.
Bye,
Yeah.
bye, bye.
Yeah.
That's what the song's about. They kicked my
When they
out.
kicked me out. Yeah. Haters, man.
Yeah.
They were jelly.
Messed
Yeah.
up.
They wrote another one about him being kicked out of it. Show me the meaning
Of
being lonely.
That's funny right there.
I was more of a
man.
Backstreet Boys fan than an NSYNC fan.
I was
but
either.
Yeah.
I had no beef. I had
You can
no
go
beef.
way back to Boys to Men,
Boys to Men,
the
yeah.
originators of the boy band.
I was a blockhead.
I did like NKOTB. Yeah.
Yeah. But back to what we were saying.
Oh yeah, we had a point.
And I know
What's this episode about?
well, and I know one thing that especially, kind of becomes a habit, especially in like dads, is not showing love to your, like, you may love your kids, but showing them love, telling them I love you, tucking them in, giving them hugs and kisses and being affectionate with them, but then expecting them when they have kids to be affectionate. Like, they don't know, you didn't teach them that. So they don't know how to do that. I think that becomes a problem because they don't know how to be that.
And
that is me right now. Because I'm not an affectionate person.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Liv because I'm not.
And and you could know like your dad loved you.
Yeah.
They just weren't affectionate that way, so you don't know how to give that because you were never taught that.
And and I've thought about, who I would be as someone's dad, and I want to be that person.
Yeah.
But it's like, like y'all know me. I'm not an emotional person. I'm not an affectionate person. And it's
Cyborg.
really, and it's really hard for me not
I
to
love
be.
you. I'm so glad you're here.
It's really hard. Like, it's very easy for me to be the disciplinary person in our house. Like, by all means, I had one of the girls writing sentences for 2 hours the other day because she woke up late and almost made Liv late for work and missed out on going to the Boys and Girls Club. It's easy for me to do that. Not just because I'm a mean person, but I don't know. That's just me in general.
Yeah.
But after that, when I had to sit down and talk with her about why we're doing this, why she had to do that, we're not mad at her or upset with her, and we love her. It's just really hard to show that other side of the spectrum in a sense. And like she wanted me to tuck her in the other night. I don't know.
Right.
What I literally asked, like, what do you want me to do?
Right. Yeah.
And I felt like Liv could feel how awkward I felt
like, I don't
because
know what.
I was literally like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know.
And I think that, I think that's a part of it. Is something you just don't know because you weren't taught that or you weren't shown that as a kid. So it could be like in finances and you know, being able to budget, you know, being able to do a bank account. Like these are things that if you have to learn, you have to take that on as a personal responsibility and go, hey, I wasn't taught this. I have to teach myself how to do this. And sometimes you get in trouble doing that because now you swing the pendulum way the other way, you know, and that's why I feel like I'm really, really affectionate with the kids. Like I'm always grabbing Bubby and hugging and snuggling, and because my dad was very stern and very military and I know he loved us and that is not a question at all, but he wasn't lovey-dovey,
right?
You know, grab you. He was very, I love you, so I'm going to teach you how to be a man. Like that's how he does. So I had to teach myself how to be that, how to be affectionate and how to love on the kids and how to tuck them in.
It's really hard. And honestly, it's kind of been something I'm insecure about because Liv's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have married someone that's more opposite than me.
Yeah.
Like the smallest little thing will make her cry. I've got to be at someone near and dear their funeral for me to cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and that's just how I don't want to say it. Yeah. That's how we are. And I want to change that. And it's really hard. And in a sense for them, because they're going through the foster system, it makes me feel bad because I don't want them to think that that's like what a marriage is. You've got one person that's like this, that's all loving, and you got one person that's not. But lives a good example of, showing that loving and affectionate side to children, and I'm just not.
Yeah.
But identifying that is the first step to changing.
Yeah.
So now you know that you have to make yourself do that, and the more you make yourself do it, the easier it's going to get.
And it is, and the one thing that really pointed out to me was like I don't even remember what night it was. It was the first night I noticed they came in and they gave Liv. They both of them came in. Me and Liv were already in bed. Came in, gave Liv a hug. Both of them said good night, love you, Liv, and went to bed.
Yeah,
I was like it didn't hurt my feelings, but it was like, oh
yeah.
Because again, you don't want them to think this is the loving person and this is the person that's going to make me write sentences.
Right.
It's
it's good.
Tough.
Like Richard said, it's good identifying that and being able to say, okay, this is something I want to fix, because that's important too, is understanding that your parents are going to have flaws. You know, the way you were raised is never going to be just perfect, but you could build on top of that. So you take the good out of your parent. Like Dad taught me how to think. He literally taught me how to think. Like your actions. What? Why? Why'd you do that? So I am I take that and I learned that from him, being able to sit my kids down and say, hey, don't do this. This is why. I didn't learn. Mom was, don't do it because I said so. Dad was like, don't do it. Here's why. Like, what were you thinking when you done this? So I was able to take that from him because he did that because he loved us. So I was able to take that and say, okay, I could build on that. He didn't teach me how to be physically affectionate. Okay, this is something I need to work on and build. Instead of just going, well, this is just how I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's how I was raised, so this is how I'm going to do it. And I think we do that as parents, and we do that in relationships really bad. Well, like public display of affection because I just wasn't raised that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fix it.
Right. And that's me and Jennifer had this problem because she wasn't raised in a household that displayed affection like, what you're talking about, Tyler. And she has used that for years in our marriage, and she's just now getting to understand that it is not okay just to say,
No.
that's the way I was raised.
No.
It is not okay to use that as an excuse to not give your partner, your children, your whoever what they need to succeed.
Because it's not okay in any other circumstance.
Right.
Yeah.
If you were to say, I'm not going to talk to you today, that's just how I was raised.
Right.
That wouldn't be okay.
Right.
Right?
It was a quiet household.
Right. Well, I'm not going to do a single thing in the house. I went to work. I'm going to come home and sit, and you need to bring me my plate. That's how I was raised.
Right.
That wouldn't fly, would it?
Right.
And of course not. It shouldn't.
Right.
Because we all need to grow. You can't stop leaning on that.
Right.
Stop it. It may be true. Yeah, that was how you raised. Cool. What does that have to do with now?
Well, and what you were saying about managing expectations earlier, Adriana is a prime example of that, because I've had to catch myself, I don't know how many times, but she'll bring her report card in and she'll have mostly a good report card, and she'll have like a D in math or something. And she's like, that's just the best I can do.
Yeah.
Well, my reaction is, well, that's unacceptable. You can't have a D. You need to do better. Maybe that's her best.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she's not going to be a mathematician.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not important. And it reminds me of a video I saw of this little girl that they were in line kicking soccer balls, and she got up there and she just barely kicked it, and just, it was, you're a loser at soccer. Well, then she goes over to the side and she starts doing like gymnastics flips.
Yeah.
Like perfect form.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not a loser. You're just in the wrong role.
Yeah. You're just not doing what you,
Right.
what you are passionate about.
Right.
And I'm the same way with Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Okay. Lee, you're 20 years old. Like, you should have it together. You should, because we had a kid by then. We had full-time jobs by then. We had bills by then, and a house and cars. And I put that expectation on her, but it's like, no. Wait a second. Let's calm it down. Like, she's doing great kid. Don't have to worry about it. She's doing great. She's working. She's trying her best. What am I? I'm putting unrealistic expectations on, just because I had to go through that doesn't mean she's going down that same path.
And it's
So
undue
let's chill.
pressure.
Yes.
It's pressure that she doesn't have to have.
No, it's like, what am I doing? Like, why? Like, and I have to catch myself. Like, Lee, I'm sorry. I know, but at 20, you got to understand, I was 60 hours a week working full time, and had a kid and had all these responsibilities. You don't have to do that, you know? So understand that as parents, because we want our kids to do better than us, but make sure you set them up to do better.
Right.
So that's a big thing too, is we create those crutches for our kids, but then expect them to not walk with a limp.
Right.
I was like, but you've done that as a parent.
Well, and it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
It's okay to do things wrong. It is not okay to just let that lie.
Yeah.
To be like, well, it happened.
Yeah.
No, fix it.
Yeah. Fail a million times. Just don't fail once a million times.
Right.
Don't fail at the same thing a million times. Fail a million different ways, but fix it each time, So it's like, and that I think stops people from really getting out of that too, is like, I'm scared to fail, so I'm just going to blame it on how I grew up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mindset thing that people need to change. The way I see failing is, it sounds cliche, but to me, it's a lesson learned on what not to do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's one way of not to. I might fail again. There's a second way not to do it.
Yeah. That's what Jamie's so good at, is taking that and going, this wasn't necessarily just bad what happened to me growing up. That is a learning opportunity. So I take the good out of that. Like, it's good. I made it through that.
Right.
Now I've learned what not to do.
Right.
And that's amazing in itself. Is like watching her go, I'm like, babe, it's crazy that you went through all this, and man, it's crazy. She's like, yeah, that helped me grow into who I am now.
Well, that's, I didn't have a dad growing up, and that made me a better dad. I know what I needed when I was younger that I didn't get.
Yeah.
So it made me more aware of being that for my children.
Yeah. And then in that same aspect, I feel like I feel like it's easy to tell people, well, you're an adult, you can change it. Because we said it a few times, it's easy to say it. And in the situation with me of learning how it's hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like those same people that we can say you're an adult, you can change it. We've got to show the same amount of grace to them as we'd show ourselves in that same sense. Cause it's hard. And some things can be hard, coming from like Jamie, coming from, the childhood that she had. I'm sure that's a lot harder than me trying to figure out how to be affectionate.
Yeah.
But still for me, it's hard.
And knowing that it's okay to need help getting over that, just as long as you're not using that as I'm not going to be able to do it because of this, and this, instead of going, hey, I just need a little help. I really want to grow and change and do better. I just need some help.
Well, that's what Jennifer has done now is said, I understand that this is a problem with me being affectionate. I need you to help me. So I'll stop her in the middle of what she's doing and just hug her. Just for no reason. Just you need a hug.
Yeah.
And she'll hug me back, whereas she used to not. She used to let her hands just set at her sides, which is a weird, awkward, stupid hug. But now she's growing, she's changing, she's trying to do better.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of seeing the problem
and wanting to change it.
To change it.
And stop leaning back on, well, this is just, it's how I am. Change, be better. Like let's grow every day, all of us. Like let's grow and get better.
Right.
And doing that is saying, okay, this may be my past, this may be what I went through, but that's not going to be who I am.
Right.
I'm going to change. I'm going to grow. I'm going to use what I can out of it and leave what I can out of it and try to grow through that. You may have went through something absolutely traumatic. I've got family members that they had it rough, like not, oh, my parents didn't really love on me a lot. Like, how to say it without it? Like growing up, being touched and being inappropriately by people that are supposed to be there for you. Getting through that traumatic, absolute life-changing, lifelong thing is just crazy to think about. And I love watching these family members working and having families and having and trying to build their life. They may still struggle with that, but they're trying to build on their life. One of my cousins, he's amazing watching him bust his tail work. He's one of the hardest workers I know. Getting over something that traumatic and not leaning on that, like, look, this happened to me as a kid, I'm never going to be able to get over it. Saying, you know what, this happened. It happened and it sucks. And you started off in a bad place.
Right.
But trying to grow from that. Still got a lot of growth, but trying to grow from that is absolutely inspiring.
Yeah.
And understanding that people do have a lot more to overcome than the next person or this person or that person. Giving them that grace, as long as they're willing to grow, as long as they're willing to try to grow from that.
That's the big thing is the willingness to change.
So if you are somebody and you're out there and you went through something as a kid or you didn't have the best, the best upbringing, I've dropped youth off and they sleep on their porch and their mom and dad are out partying. They live with their grandma and they don't have, their only food they got is the food we had at youth. Like that is so much harder to overcome than Susan over here. And her daddy owns a farm and she's got a truck waiting on her when she's 16 and a big bank account and a private school college when she graduates. That she's got a jump start. This person doesn't. But knowing that you're not done just because of your upbringing, you've got a future and a hope, and you can be something very special. So keep fighting through it, keep pushing, and keep growing.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
I like that.
What else y'all
Keep
got?
on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. Joe Dirt. That's all I got.
Life's a garden.
Dig it.
There's beauty in the attempt.
It's all.
Wow.
That was a message.
Right?
Wow.
Well, I sure do love y'all.
Love you more.
You're pretty awesome. What y'all's plans for tomorrow?
My buddy Mike's supposed to be coming up.
Oh, Lord help you.
Excuse me, sorry.
He's going to take a nap.
That time.
I see that.
We're taking the girls to see their mom tomorrow. And we might have a house showing. I'm not sure.
Nice.
He doesn't know what he's doing till Liv tells him.
I don't know. You could have saved
I
20 seconds.
I live my life one day at a time.
1/4 mile at a time. Come on.
Hey, listeners, we just want to thank you for your continued support for the Almost Brothers podcast. Do us a favor and go to your favorite platform and rate us and like us and share with everyone that you know. Thank you so much. Love you.